Welcome into the first college basketball Sportsmemo podcast of the year, where we got our college basketball expert here, Brent Crow, on with us. Brent, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Drew. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to have you on and talk, 4 or 5 college basketball games for tonight, Thursday, November 15th. We got some big games on the card, a big card here, not like a normal Saturday college basketball card, but Brent, also just wanted to kind of ask your overall handicapping thoughts on betting college basketball. Is this your favorite sport to bet and your best sport to bet?
Absolutely. And, I think the reason is there's 349 teams that are they're not all boarded, but 349 Division I teams. So you got a lot to keep up with. And, it's not like the NFL where everybody knows everything about every team. In college basketball, you do a little more work, watch a few more games, and you can have some edges against everybody else. And, with the internet, it's hard to do. I mean, the edges get smaller every year in every sport. But in college basketball, I've been able to look at some things I don't think people look at. And, just like I said, it takes a lot of work and a lot of research, but it's paid off. And, we play a lot of totals, play a few sides. And, early in the season, what I'm looking for more than anything is teams that are different than last year or not what they were supposed to be this year. You get a lot of turnover in college basketball. I mean, for the most part, every team has 8 guys, and you may have just a handful of teams that return all 5 starters. A lot of them return 2 starters or 3 starters. So there's early in the season, a lot of it is just based on projections, and nobody really knows. But if you watch college basketball as much as I do, the hope is that after a game or two, you see stuff that is not accounted for in the line. And usually when you find stuff like that, it'll last, depending on how big of a market the team plays in. I may have an advantage for the next 4 or 5 games before everybody else figures it out.
Yeah, and Brent, I mean, your documented record last year was 72-48. That's 60% plus 25 units. That's on a 1 and 2 unit scale, guys. So no like artificial inflation or anything like that. So a monster year for you, Brent. And when you bring up, you watch college basketball, as much college basketball as you do. Like, what's your normal day as far as kind of just at night, just turn on the TVs and watch as much as possible, and late at night, researching on the internet for changes, or what's your normal day routine?
Yeah, we've got the TVs, we've got the computer monitors. The good thing about it now is you can almost watch about any game you want to. I mean, you've got with live streaming on the internet. I mean, it's I don't think there's been a game this year that I wanted to watch that I hadn't been able to. And a lot of them are on ESPN3, but then sometimes I have to go to some, I don't know, illegal streaming sites to find them, and click through a bunch of ads, but it pays off. And so I usually watch as many games as possible. Try not to only watch the games that have action on. There are if there are teams playing that are with a new coach or a really big roster turnover, I try to watch those teams, even if I have no action on them, just to get a feel for what they're doing. And like I said, I think college basketball, the good part about it, or the best part about it, is that there are so many teams, and you've still got football going on, you've got NBA, and it's not on everyone's radar right now. It's not on everyone's major focus. So if I focus on college basketball, and it has provided me with edges throughout the years, and I played a little basketball in high school and college, and I think that experience helps a little bit. Although the game's a lot different now than when I play.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, you know the game, so it helps a lot. And you said you bet a lot of totals and some sides. Is there a reason for betting more totals than sides?
Just the unpredictability of sides. I mean, there are times where I can find what I'm really looking for with sides is teams that are just completely valued wrong. Early in the year, it's not about situations. It's just trying to find a team or two that wasn't supposed to be any good that turns out they're actually pretty decent. Or like the case of George Mason this year, they're supposed to be great. All 5 starters back, they're 0-3. And those are the the type teams that are the situations I look for with sides. And then as the season progresses, we'll look more for spots where you've had a team that, comes off a big win or whatever. They're in a good situation. But for now, it's just trying to find the teams that are valued wrong.
Makes a lot of sense, Brent. And guys, coupon code CROWHALF, that's CROWHALF at checkout for half off his 30-day all-access at sportsmemo.com. That will get you NFL, college football, college basketball, which we're talking right now. And the coupon code is CROWHALF at checkout at sportsmemo.com for his 30-day all-access package. Brent, let's go over a couple games for tonight's slate. We got 5:07, 5:08, Ohio State, Creighton. Looks like the Buckeyes laying 148 as is the total. What's your opinion on Ohio State Creighton?
So here's a good example. You've got an Ohio State team that, really people don't know what to expect from Ohio State this year. But they go on the road in their first game, win at Cincinnati, which looks great. But Cincinnati lost everybody, too. There's so many factors early in the season. For Villanova and Michigan last night, it's another great example. Villanova's defending national champs. They're playing at home. They're favored over Michigan. But, boy, it was clear last night that Villanova's not the same team that they were. And Michigan is I thought looked really good, especially defensively. So, unfortunately, in the case of Villanova, it was on national TV. It is Villanova, so you're not going to have, the next. Everybody knows that. Well, Villanova's not as good as they were, but if you find teams that are in some of the lesser conferences, that's that you get a little more value with them. But with Ohio State, I thought anytime you go to Cincinnati and win, Cincinnati's going to have a strong home court. They're going to have a strong defensive presence, and they do have some guys back. But Ohio State, I was impressed with their win against Cincinnati. That's a solid victory, no doubt about it. Creighton, Greg McDermott runs a solid program there. He also lost a lot from a year ago. He's got a new freshman point guard, and I was really hoping to get Ohio State plus a few points. I was kind of disappointed here that Ohio State was a favorite in this game, and again, that's what happens with high-profile teams. When Ohio State wins at Cincinnati, everybody takes notice. But even though they're leg two, they've proven they can go on the road and win, and I think they've got some advantages against Creighton athletically. And Creighton struggled to beat Western Illinois and East Tennessee State at home. This is an entirely different animal, and I think I lean a little bit Ohio State here. Like I said, I think that was an impressive win, and they're a little better team than Creighton.
Brent, we got Texas A&M at Gonzaga, game number 523, 524. This is a late nighter, seeing 11:30 Eastern start. So some of the degenerates out there can get some action down on this. We got 157 as the total, 16.5 Gonzaga laying.
Yeah, and Texas A&M has undergone a complete metamorphosis of what they have been over the last few years. They've had size. They've been a defensive-oriented team. They had Robert Williams down low, Tyler Davis, had a really strong inside game. This year, they played 4 guards, maybe 5. Billy Kennedy has turned them loose. They're shooting threes. He doesn't have a choice. It's a case of he's got to get his best players on the court and play the style that suits them. And for Texas A&M, it is totally different than what they did in the last few years. Now, it hasn't worked so far. They did beat Savannah State. Of course, everybody beats Savannah State. But then they lose at home to UC Irvine by a point, and now they've got a really tough game on the road against Gonzaga. And, Gonzaga, one thing I've noticed about Gonzaga, when they play really good teams, they tend to slow it down and play lower scoring games. But against teams that they have advantages that will run, Gonzaga will run too. And this one, it opened at 154. It's up to 157.5. I still like it over a little bit, but that kind of took the value out of it as far as playing the over. But I would lean a little with the Zags as well. I think Texas A&M's going to struggle this year. Granted, Kennedy's doing what he can, but he lost a lot of talent, and this is totally new for this program, trying to play this way with more of a faster pace and shoot a lot of threes. I'm not sure he's got the guys to do it.
Brent, we got a Big Ten for Sunbelt affair here. Purdue at App State, or Purdue versus App State. 13.5 is the Boilermakers laying. 152 is the total.
Yeah, Purdue lost a lot of players from last year, but they're still going to be very good. I like Carson Edwards. He's one of the I've seen him as possibly the National Player of the Year. Of course, after watching Duke, I'm not sure that's going to be the case, but Edwards is definitely up there in the top 5 or 10 players in the country. And even though Purdue did, like I said, they lose a lot, they've still got the 7-3 Matt Harms guy back. And I think the Purdue team is going to get better as the season goes along. So far, they're 2-0. They beat Fairfield and Ball State at home. They should get a win against Appalachian State. And I watched Appalachian State the other night against Alabama on the road, and I came away pretty impressed with Appalachian State. They've got some guys that can get it up and down the court. Ronchad Shabazz hit 5 threes against Alabama. And, that game shows it wound up as an 81-73 loss, but they were right there. And, I don't think Alabama's that great, but I think Appalachian State may be a little better than people think. And, on a neutral court, a lot of times people look at neutral courts like this game and don't really –
in Charleston, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So you look, and it's, Purdue's only 13.5 against Appalachian State. Well, laying 13.5 at home and on a neutral court is two different things. So I lean a little to App State here, and we'll see if they follow up their good performance against Alabama with a solid one here against Purdue, and I think they will.
We got Wichita State, Davidson, 149.5. The total with Davidson laying, 3 or 3.5?
Yeah, this one's gone crazy. It opened Davidson -1 up to 3.5. And, if you watched Wichita State the first Tuesday, the opening night of the season, you understand why people are betting against Wichita State. They lose at home to Louisiana Tech 71-58. Looked horrible for a Greg Marshall team that lost a lot of talent. Landry Shamet in the NBA, 3 other starters. They have Marcus McDuffie back, but he didn't play well in the first game. But game 2, a neutral site game against Providence, it was a completely different Wichita State team. It looked like they just figured it out all of a sudden. McDuffie had a huge game. They played much better against Providence, which I think Providence has a decent team. And now you've got another neutral site game against Davidson, which has beaten Dartmouth and Cleveland State so far. And I disagree with the line move. Like I said, sometimes if you watch Wichita State against La Tech, and then a lot of times it just takes a little bit for teams to get it, and that under Greg Marshall they're eventually going to get it. I mean, they're not going to go to 30-2 again this year or whatever. They've been so solid the last few years, but they're still going to be a top-notch team, probably just outside the top 25. And Davidson, I respect their program, but as far as their athletic ability and all, they don't match up with Wichita State. And I would lean to Wichita State plus the points here. I think you'll probably see a fairly high-scoring game as well.
Brent, we got one game left here. Oregon, Iowa, Pac-12, Big Ten. Looks like the Ducks laying 4. You can find a couple 4.5s out there if you're looking to bet the Hawkeyes. 149 the total, Brent.
Yeah, and this one's in Madison Square Garden. So, both teams doing a little bit of traveling. Iowa 2-0. They beat University of Missouri, Kansas City at home, and then also Wisconsin, Green Bay. And you look at this Iowa team, and they've been sort of disappointing the last few years. I mean, Fran McCafferty, go 14-19 last year, 19-15 the year before that. I mean, he's had some success there, but not consistent success. And I look at this roster. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that have played minutes, but they just don't have the superstars. I mean, Iowa never has a real true superstar, but it just looks like they got a bunch of role players here. I guess Jordan Bohannon would be their best player. But I'm not sure that's good enough against a team like Oregon. And Dana Altman has had a lot of turnover. He had those 2 great years in 16 and 17. He won 30 games both times. Last year was a little bit of a struggle, but he still goes 23-13. He's got Manute Bowles. It's his son, isn't it? Bol.
Yeah,
who's
I think so.
the 7'2" freshman that has been phenomenal in their first 2 games. And this team is playing defense again. They held Portland State, which was a high-scoring team last year, to 57, and then 47 allowed against Eastern Washington. in game 2, and they have Peyton Pritchard back. Paul White comes back as a senior. Kenny Wooten is a sophomore who was a really highly touted freshman last year. And I think Oregon's a better team here. I'll probably be on Oregon a little bit tonight with some action. It's funny. I played in junior college with Manute Bowles' nephew.
Yeah.
And his son's playing for Oregon.
How tall was he?
He wasn't as tall.
No.
6'9". He looked just like Manute, but wasn't as tall.
Oh man, where did you play? In Alabama?
In Alabama, yep. And I have no idea where he came from. I mean, he was from Sudan, but I think I'm not sure where he had lived in the United States. But it was funny. Manute I actually talked to him on the phone one time, and if you ever saw the videos with him and Charles Barkley cutting up, I mean, Manute was a card. He had a Ford Bronco with the front seat taken out, and he sat in the back seat to drive. No kidding. That's how tall he was.
Please tell me it was a white Ford Bronco, and he used to.
I didn't see what color it was. But.
Oh man, good stuff, Brent. Anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down?
Just looking forward to you guys. All these tournaments. You're going to have daytime action we have tomorrow, and then all of next week. So I really like this time of year in college basketball. You get to watch a lot of games, and there are several good opportunities usually to make some money.
All right, good stuff, Brent. And guys, remember the coupon code CROW half at checkout for half off his 30-day all access. College basketball, college football, NFL, all the sports there. Great time of year to be betting college basketball. Excited to have Brent back on the podcast a bunch coming up in the next few weeks talking college basketball. So stay tuned, guys, and best of luck with your bets. Thanks for tuning in.